Far away from the human ship in the heart of the Galactic Empire, the council chamber glowed with cold light. It was a vast room built of crystal and steel, where leaders of dozens of powerful species gathered, tall, broad, and strange in their alien forms. They sat on thrones that circled a burning holographic map of the galaxy. Every counselor's eyes fixed on the glowing red dot that now pulsed near the center of their empire. A new arrival, a trespasser, a species that should not have been able to get this far. "This is unacceptable," hissed Lord Krythal, a reptilian noble whose scales shimmered black and green. "They dare to appear inside our borders as if they own the stars. They must be crushed at once." Another counselor, tall and insect-like with 4 clicking jaws, raised his voice. "Their ships are too small, too few. They cannot threaten us. But if we let this pass, others will think our rule is weak." Murmurs spread across the chamber, some filled with fury, some with fear. The Empire had lasted thousands of years, unchallenged. No one entered their sacred space without kneeling. But these humans had not kneeled. Worse, they had laughed at the demand of surrender. Admiral Rither, commander of the Empire's armadas, stood before the council, his massive body armored with ceremonial plates, his eyes burning red. "I have seen their transmissions," he growled. They spoke without fear, they did not shake. They stared directly at our fleet and said, "We do not surrender." The chamber fell into silence. The words hung like a weapon in the air. It was not strength alone that unsettled the council. It was the calmness, the defiance, hidden inside. Their simple reply, a thin, pale alien with luminous eyes, leaned forward. "Do they even know who we are?" he asked softly. "Do they understand they face the greatest empire in the galaxy?" "They understand nothing," Krythal snapped. "They are children wandering into a battlefield. We will erase them and no one will remember their name." But not all were convinced. High Chancellor Vera, a creature with golden feathers, and a voice like a bell, lifted her wings slowly. "Perhaps you are wrong," she said. "I studied their signal, their words, their tone. These humans were not confused. They knew what they were saying, and they dared to say it to us." The counselors erupted in argument, voices clashing like thunder. Some demanded immediate annihilation. Others urged patience, curiosity. What kind of species walked into the lion's den and did not tremble? Back on the Odyssey, the humans waited. The alien fleet still circled them, weapons hot but not yet fired. "Any reply from the council?" The communications officer asked quietly. "None," Elias Ward answered. "They're arguing? How do you know?" one young ensign asked. Elias allowed a faint smile. "Because that's what powerful people always do when they don't understand what they're facing." And he was right. In the council chamber, the panic grew. Every moment the humans stayed. Alive was a blow to the Empire's pride. Every second they refused to kneel was an insult broadcast to the stars. Admiral Rither slammed his clawed hand on the crystal table, cracking its surface. "Enough," he roared. "I will take a fleet and end them. If they want to test the Empire's strength, then they will drown in it." But Chancellor Vera raised her feathers higher, her golden eyes flashing. "No," she said firmly. "If we strike too quickly and fail, it will spread fear through the entire Empire. Better we study them, learn what gives them such courage. We cannot risk underestimating them. You call this courage?" Krythal hissed, his forked tongue flicking. "It is madness, and madness is cured with fire." The council split in two, voices rising in fury. The galaxy itself seemed to shake as the most powerful rulers in the known universe could not agree. "Destroy them," some shouted. "Observe them," others warned. Meanwhile, in hidden corners of the chamber, whispers spread. "If they do not fear us, what else are they hiding? What if they come from a death world, where survival itself forges monsters? What if they are not weak but dangerous beyond measure?" Those whispers grew like poison vines in the minds of the counselors. For the first time in centuries, doubt had entered the heart of the Empire. Back on the Odyssey, Captain Elias Ward studied the tactical screen. Hundreds of alien ships surrounded them. Every instinct told his crew they should be afraid. But Elias stood calmly, his voice steady. "Hold position. We will not fire first." His words carried across the crew like a shield. Fear was still there, but so was something else. A strange, rising confidence. If their captain was not afraid, then perhaps they had no reason to be. The council's message finally arrived. It was sharp, full of arrogance and venom. You are surrounded. Leave your ships, surrender, or you will be destroyed. Elias listened in silence. Then he gave his answer, his voice steady as stone. We came here by accident, but we will not bow. We do not surrender. And with those words, the entire chamber of the council froze. For in that moment, the Galactic Empire, vast and ancient, realized a truth they had never faced before. They had found a species that would rather burn than kneel. In the shining capital of the Galactic Empire, the council chamber trembled with voices. It was a place carved from living stone and crystal, tall pillars glowing with energy. Here, the rulers of countless worlds met to decide the fate of stars, but today, they were not calm. Today, fear crept into their proud hearts. On the center dais floated a projection. It showed the human fleet, small silver ships drifting calmly among a sea of imperial war vessels. Every counselor stared at it. The image was a spark, and the chamber burned with anger. This is an insult, growled Lord Korath, his massive tusks clashing together as he slammed a fist on the table. A primitive race dares to appear here in our sacred space, and they refuse to kneel. If we do not strike, our subjects will think us weak. Others joined in, shouting. The insectoid speaker Jer clicked his mandibles. They smiled when threatened. I have studied the recording. Not once did their captain show fear. Such defiance is dangerous. But some voices were softer. Chancellor Vera, with feathers like flowing gold, spoke slowly. I listened too. Their tone was calm, their words steady. This is not ignorance. They know they stand against us, and still, they do not flinch. The hall filled with whispers. The word spread. Like poison, they do not fear. They do not bend. They do not surrender. For thousands of years, the Empire had ruled unchallenged. Species trembled at their command. Armies surrendered before battles began. But these humans, they acted as though the Empire was nothing more than another neighbor. Admiral Reither entered the chamber, his armor clattering as he strode forward. His voice thundered across the room. I advise immediate annihilation. They are few. Their fleet is weak. One command and I will scatter them to dust. The chamber roared in agreement, but Vera lifted her hand. If you strike and fail, Admiral, even once, even slightly, our empire will shake. These humans carry a weight we do not yet understand. Better we learn, better we watch. For what kind of species laughs when death surrounds them? The counselors fell into bitter argument. Some slammed their fists, demanding war. Others leaned back in unease, watching the red dot of the human fleet still glowing on the map. They had expected submission, but what they saw was confidence. It was like staring into the eyes of a predator that should not exist. Back aboard the Odyssey, the crew felt the silence too. No new threats, no missiles, only waiting. They're deciding, Captain Elias Ward said quietly. The young ensign frowned. How can you tell? Elias gave a faint smile. Because rulers always argue when something frightens them. He was right. In the council chamber, the pride of the Empire cracked. Some imagined the humans as fools, soon to die. But others, deep inside, felt a new and unwelcome thought. What if the humans were not fools? What if they truly had nothing to fear? Lord Korath snarled. You speak of caution, but caution breeds weakness. If word spreads that the council hesitated before these intruders, we will look broken. I say burn them now. And I say no. Vera countered, her golden feathers bristling. If they came this far by accident or by design, they possess knowledge we must uncover. We will not act blindly. The chamber erupted again, each voice rising higher. The very walls vibrated with fury and fear. The greatest rulers in the galaxy could not agree. And beyond the chamber doors, rumors already spread. Rumors that an unknown species had defied the Empire and lived, finally, After hours of heated dispute, a message was agreed upon. It was filled with arrogance, with the sharp edges of threat. Humans of Earth, you are surrounded. Abandon your ships and kneel. This is your final chance. When the transmission reached the Odyssey, the crew held their breath. Eyes turned to Captain Elias Ward. He listened, without a flicker of fear. Then he gave the same reply as before. We came here by accident, but we will not kneel. We do not surrender. And in that moment, far across the stars, the council chamber fell silent. For they had just heard the words of a species unlike any other, a species that walked into the jaws of the Empire and smiled. The alien armada hung in space like a wall of steel and fire. Hundreds of warships surrounded the small human fleet, weapons glowing with lethal power. On every screen aboard the Odyssey, alien symbols flickered, each carrying the same meaning: warning, surrender, obedience. But Captain Elias Ward did not move. He stood at the center of the bridge, his hands folded behind his back, his eyes calm. Transmission incoming, the communications officer whispered. The voice that filled the bridge was deep and merciless, translated through static. You stand in violation of the Galactic Empire. You are intruders. Your presence is forbidden. You will kneel now, or be erased. The words echoed across the human ship like the toll of a bell. Young ensigns shifted nervously, some swallowing hard, others gripping their consoles too tightly. They expected panic, perhaps fear in their captain's voice, but Elias only nodded. Open a reply channel, he said softly. The comms crackled and his voice flowed outward into the void. We are explorers. We came here without intent of war, but we will not kneel. If you fire on us, remember, we warned you first. The bridge fell silent. Even. The hum of the engines felt louder than the breaths of the crew. The alien ships did not fire. Not yet. Instead, the command ship advanced slowly, its shadow stretching across the Odyssey. From the alien flagship, Admiral Trezicor watched the humans through live feed. He was a towering creature with scaled skin and burning yellow eyes. His claws tapped impatiently on the armrest of his command chair. He had crushed rebellions, burned planets, enslaved entire species. Never had he seen such calm from prey. Fools, he snarled to his officers. They are few, they are weak. But they dare to defy us, I will crush them myself. On the Odyssey, warning alarms blared. Energy spikes lit the scanners. Alien weapons charging. The weapons officer's voice cracked. Captain, they're preparing to fire. Still Elias Ward stood steady. Hold fire, he ordered. The crew froze, their hearts pounding. Sir, if we don't fire first? We don't fire first, Elias repeated firmly. They must show their true hand before we reveal ours. The alien admiral raised his claw, ready to give the kill order, but before he spoke, his tactical officer interrupted. My lord, sensors show unusual shield harmonics on their ship, primitive design. But strangely resilient. Meaningless, Trezicor spat. One volley will scatter them like dust. Yet a shadow of unease crept into his thoughts. The first shot came. A massive energy beam, bright as a star, surged from the alien flagship and slammed into the Odyssey's shield. The crew braced for destruction. Lights flickered, consoles sparked. But the ship held. The shield shimmered, bent, and then stabilized. The humans were still alive. Gasps filled the alien bridge. Whispers of disbelief spread. How? No vessel of that size should survive a direct strike. Trezicor snarled, slamming his clawed hand against the console. Fire again. Harder. A second volley crashed into the Odyssey. The ship shook violently. Panels tore loose. But still it endured. The shield flickered like a dying flame. But it did not collapse. When the smoke cleared, Captain Elias Ward stood exactly where he had been. He leaned forward, his voice calm. Now, return fire. The Odyssey's cannons roared to life. Not wild volleys, not reckless rage, but precise. Calculated shots, beams lanced out and struck the alien flagship's weapons array. 1, 2, 3 shots, and entire gun batteries went dark. Sparks flew across the alien bridge, officers shouting in panic. They're targeting systems, not. Hull, they're disabling us! On the human bridge, the crew stared in awe. Every shot struck perfectly, crippling the enemy without unnecessary destruction. The navigator whispered, "It's like he's been planning this for years." Elias Ward's eyes stayed locked on the enemy flagship. "This is not about victory. This is about a message, and the message is clear. We will not bow." Back in the council chamber, the scene unfolded on massive displays. Every counselor watched in silence as one human ship endured the Empire's fury and replied with precision. A whisper spread, "They should have been destroyed." Yet they still stand. And they did not flinch. Admiral Trescor's flagship now drifted half-disabled, weapons dark, pride shattered. He trembled with rage and disbelief. He had meant his warning as a death sentence, but instead, it became a humiliation. On the Odyssey, the crew sat. In stunned silence, their hearts still raced, but now it was not fear they felt. It was something stronger. Pride. They had faced the impossible and endured. And their captain had never once let them see fear. The warning had failed. The Empire had shown its power, but the humans had shown something greater. The courage to stand unbroken, and across the stars, the first seeds of fear began to grow. Not in the hearts of humans, but in the heart of the Empire. The silence after the failed warning did not last long. In the depths of space, tension thickened like storm clouds. The human ship, Odyssey, floated steady, its shields flickering but alive. Around it, the Empire's warships shifted formation like wolves circling a lone prey. Their pride had been wounded, and the Empire did not forgive wounds. On the alien flagship, Admiral Trescor snarled, his burning eyes narrowing. "Enough humiliation," he roared, his claws scraping across the console. "They dare to resist. They dare to wound our honor. Signal the fleet, all ships prepare for battle." Orders flew like lightning through the alien fleet. Engines ignited. Weapons pulsed. Battle formations closed in. For centuries, no one had withstood the Empire's might, and the thought of a tiny, unknown race standing firm was unbearable. They would make the humans an example. Back on the Odyssey, the alarms rang once again. The tactical officer's hands trembled as he read the scanner. "Captain, multiple. Ships powering weapons, they're surrounding us, we're outnumbered." 20-1. The crew exchanged fearful looks, but Elias Ward's face stayed calm, his voice cut through the panic like steel. "Numbers don't win battles. Discipline does, patience does, and courage does." The crew drew strength from his steady tone. No one spoke of surrender. No one begged for escape. Instead, they braced for what was coming. Human hearts burned with the stubborn fire that had carried them across oceans and now into the stars. The first alien cruiser lunged forward, its cannons blazing. Bright beams tore through the void, slamming against the Odyssey's shields. The ship shuddered. Metal groaned, but the humans held formation. "Return fire now," Elias commanded. And the Odyssey roared back. Bolts of light streaked across the black. The first alien cruiser spun out of control. Its engines crippled, not destroyed but silenced. The crew cheered, their fear melting into fierce determination. "One down," the weapons officer whispered. "And more to come." The Empire's fleet answered with fury. Dozens of ships fired at once, the sky turning into a storm of burning fire. Explosions flared around the Odyssey, but still the ship endured. Each hit shook the crew, sparks flying, consoles sparking, yet their captain stood firm. "Hold steady," Elias ordered. "Target their weak points. Don't waste shots." The humans struck back with precision. One alien frigate lost its engines, drifting powerless into the void. Another had its shield matrix shattered, leaving it vulnerable and retreating. Each time the Odyssey's fire was not random but surgical, like a surgeon's blade cutting the nerves of a giant. On the Council's viewing screens, the battle unfolded live. Counselors who had once laughed at the humans now leaned forward in silence, their voices hushed, their hearts uncertain. "These are no savages," one whispered. "They fight like they have done this for generations." In the chamber, whispers grew louder. "Why do they not run? Why do they not fear? They fight like predators, not prey."
Back in space, the Empire sent in heavier ships. Massive destroyers moved forward, their cannons glowing with deadly energy. The Odyssey's hull trembled as the blasts rained. Down, panels fell, sparks sprayed, smoke filled parts of the ship. But the humans fought back harder. "Redirect power to forward shields," Elias commanded. "Push us between them right through their line." The crew gasped at the order. It was madness. No ship ever charged into the heart of an Empire formation. But Elias's voice was certain, unshaken. They obeyed. The Odyssey roared forward straight into the storm. Alien gunners fired wildly, beams tearing past, some striking hard. But in the chaos, the humans struck with precision. One destroyer lost its main gun, another's reactor overloaded. The line broke, ships scattering, confused by the boldness of the attack. Inside the alien flagship, Admiral Trezkor roared in fury. "This is impossible. They are few, they are weak. How can they endure?" But deep inside, even he felt the shadow of something he had never felt before. Doubt. The clash raged on, but with every moment the truth became clearer. The humans had come uninvited. They had been warned, threatened, attacked. And still, they had not broken. Still, they had not bowed. On the Odyssey, the crew looked to their captain. Exhaustion burned in their eyes, but so did fire. Elias Ward stood tall, his voice cutting through smoke and alarms. "Remember this, it is not their numbers we fight, it is their pride, and today we break it." And so the battle continued, the first clash between Earth and the Empire, not a war of conquest, not a war of territory, but a war of will, and, as the stars lit with fire, one truth echoed louder than any weapon. Humans did not flinch. The news spread faster than light. From system to system, from station to station, whispers carried the impossible tale. A single human ship had faced the Empire's fleet and had not been destroyed. Worse, it had fought back, precise and fearless, crippling Imperial cruisers before vanishing into the dark. On mining colonies at the edge of the galaxy, workers paused in silence as broadcasts replayed the battle. On wealthy core worlds, nobles leaned closer to their private screens, unable to believe what they saw. Even slaves in hidden corners of the Empire whispered the word with awe. "Humans," they said, as though the name itself was dangerous. In the council chamber, the atmosphere was heavy. The proud rulers who had once laughed at Earth now struggled to keep their composure. The battle had not been a defeat, but it had not been a victory either. And for the Empire, anything less than total domination was humiliation. "They embarrassed us," Lord Korath spat, his tusks clashing as his anger echoed. One ship, one primitive crew, and already half the galaxy whispers that the Council hesitated. If we do not crush them now, our authority will rot. Others, however, were not so certain. Speaker Jair, the insectoid diplomat, clicked his jaws in unease. "They fight with unusual discipline. Their weapons are not superior, their numbers are not great, but they strike with purpose. They disable. They do not waste. That calmness, it frightens me." Chancellor Vera spread her golden feathers, her eyes shimmering. "Yes," she said softly. They faced overwhelming odds and did not panic. Their captain spoke like one who had already seen death and conquered it. "Tell me how many of our own soldiers could do the same." The chamber erupted in argument. Half demanded war without mercy. The other half whispered for caution. The cracks in the Empire's unity widened. Meanwhile, aboard the Odyssey, the crew repaired their battered ship. Scars lined the hull. Power. Conduit smoked, but morale burned brighter than ever. The youngest ensign whispered to another, "We survived. Against them." The weapons officer grinned, blood on his brow. "Survived? We made them bleed?" Captain Elias Ward walked the bridge slowly, his steps calm, his voice steady. "Remember what this means?" he told his crew. "They thought us prey. They thought we would bow, but now they know we are not prey." His words spread through the ship like fire. Men and women stood straighter, their exhaustion fading into pride. It was not only survival, it was proof that humanity belonged among the stars.
Back in the Empire, rumors grew more dangerous. Soldiers in distant garrisons muttered, "If humans can defy them, perhaps others can too," merchants whispered. "If they can fight the Empire and live, maybe they can trade in freedom." Even slaves dared to dream in the shadows. Perhaps the chains were not unbreakable after all. Admiral Trescor, whose flagship had been crippled, stood in disgrace before the council. His claws trembled, his pride shattered. "I underestimated them," he admitted, his voice low. "They are not like the others. They fight as if fear itself is alien to them." The council hissed in fury. "Excuses," one shouted. "You failed," another growled. But deep in their hearts, many counselors knew the truth. It was not only the admiral who had failed, it was the Empire itself. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy had seen the council bleed, and once such weakness was seen, it could never be unseen. On the Odyssey, silence filled the bridge as Elias Ward received intercepted transmissions, alien worlds whispering of humans, subjects doubting the Empire's strength. His eyes narrowed. "They're afraid," he said softly. "And when the powerful grow afraid, empires fall." The crew listened in awe. They had thought this was only survival, only escape. But their captain saw something greater. This was the beginning of something larger than Earth itself. Far away on the edge of the galaxy, a resistance leader on a conquered world leaned closer to the hidden broadcast. He saw humans standing tall, calm against impossible odds. His heart quickened. "If they can fight," he whispered, "so can we." And so the seed spread, carried on whispers, from slaves to soldiers, from merchants to rulers. The Empire had not only failed to crush humans, they had awakened something far worse, hope. The council gathered once more, their voices sharp, their pride wounded. "They are reckless children," one shouted. "They are a threat," another hissed. But Vera spoke above them all. "No, they are a storm, and we cannot stop a storm by shouting at it." The Empire had been shaken, its pride cracked, its people unsettled, and its enemies inspired, and somewhere in the shadows of that vast empire, the word human spread like fire. A word that now meant defiance, a word that now meant danger, a word that now meant freedom. The stars above the Empire's core worlds burned brighter that night. For the first time in centuries, the mighty fleets of the Galactic Empire had been forced to regroup, and all across the galaxy, whispers refused to die. The humans had stood against them and survived. The humans had fought, and the Empire had faltered. In the council chamber, pride was gone, replaced by unease. Admirals and lords argued louder than ever. Some demanded an overwhelming strike, an armada larger than anything used in recent wars. Others urged restraint, afraid of what might be revealed if humans stood firm again. But pride won, as it always did. Admiral Valeth, a cold and ruthless strategist, slammed her claw on the glowing star map. "We will not be mocked again," she declared. "We gather, every fleet in range. We will send hundreds of ships. We will erase them so completely that no one will dare whisper their name again." The council agreed. The order was given. A grand strike force, hundreds of warships, dreadnoughts, carriers, assembled like a storm cloud at the edge of the stars. On the Odyssey, Captain Elias Ward studied the intelligence gathered by their scanners. Reports confirmed what they feared. The largest armada yet was coming for them. His crew stared at the data in silence, some pale, some trembling. "Hundreds of ships," the navigator whispered, "and we're just one." But Elias only leaned closer to the tactical screen. His voice was quiet but steady. "Then it is not a battle of ships. It is a battle of will." The words sank into the hearts of the crew. They had seen their captain stand calm in the face of destruction. Now once again his steadiness became their anchor. Days later, space itself darkened. The Armada arrived, rows upon rows of alien warships, a wall of firepower stretching beyond sight. The void shimmered with energy as thousands of cannons charged. The sight was overwhelming. Even the bravest human aboard the Odyssey felt their heart pound with fear. The alien commander's voice thundered through the comms. "Humans of Earth, you are surrounded by the greatest armada ever assembled. Surrender now and you may be spared. Resist, and your ashes will scatter across the stars. The bridge fell silent. Every crew member looked at Captain Ward. Would this be the moment he bent? Would this be the moment humanity bowed? But Elias Ward did not move. His eyes scanned the enemy formation. Then he spoke, his tone as calm as ever. Transmit this message, he ordered. We do not surrender. We do not bow. If you fire, no, you will awaken something you cannot control. The reply spread across the alien armada. It was received in silence. But silence was more dangerous than anger, because inside every alien captain, doubt grew. How could such a small force speak so firmly? How could they stand calm before certain death? And then in that silence something remarkable happened. The alien armada hesitated. Not a single ship fired. The Council's order had been clear: crush them, erase them. But hesitation crept. Through the chain of command like a sickness, the human crew realized it too. They're waiting, the tactical officer whispered, eyes wide. They're afraid. Captain Ward nodded slowly. This is the turning point, he said. They brought their storm, but the storm is hollow if they cannot unleash it. Inside the alien flagship, Admiral Valeth screamed in fury. Fire! Fire now, she ordered. But her officers shifted uneasily. They had seen the earlier battle. They had heard the whispers, and deep in their bones, they feared what might happen if the humans survived again. Seconds stretched into eternity. Hundreds of warships, armed and ready, and not a single one fired. Back on the Odyssey, Elias Ward stood tall. His crew watched him with awe. They knew now that their survival was not just luck, it was strength, it was resolve. And their defiance had cracked the unbreakable pride of the Empire. The Council back on the capital received the reports in outrage. They hesitated. One shouted, "Our fleets disobeyed." Another gasped, but Chancellor Vera only lowered her golden feathers and whispered, "It has begun. They no longer fear us as they once did, and once fear is gone, power fades." Across the galaxy, resistance leaders, merchants, and common folk heard of the moment. The Empire had brought its greatest force to bear. And still the humans did not bow. The humans stood calm, and the Empire trembled. The turning point had arrived. It was no longer about one ship or one crew. It was about something larger, an idea that spread like wildfire. The Empire was not invincible and humans were not afraid. The galaxy held its breath. The greatest armada of the Galactic Empire had surrounded a single human ship. Weapons were primed, engines roared, but no order of fire came. Hesitation spread like a shadow across the alien fleets. For the first time in living memory, the Empire faltered before an enemy. On the bridge of the Odyssey, Captain Elias Ward stood in silence. His crew waited, hearts pounding, eyes fixed on the wall of warships outside. They had expected fire, destruction, death, but instead, they saw hesitation, and in that hesitation, they found strength. "Sir," the weapons officer whispered. "They're not moving, they're waiting." Elias's gaze was sharp, his voice calm. They came with numbers, they came with pride, but deep inside they're afraid. This is their weakness, and today, we show them what fear truly means. He gave the order. Target their command ships, not to destroy, but to cripple. The Odyssey's cannons lit up the void. Precise bursts of fire struck with surgical accuracy. One alien dreadnought lost its engines, drifting helplessly. Another flagship's communication arrays burned out, leaving it silent. The mighty wall of ships began to crumble, not from destruction, but from doubt. Alien officers shouted in panic. "They strike our cores. They know exactly where to hit." Admirals barked orders, but hesitation twisted their voices. Every captain asked the same unspoken question: what if we fail? Back in the council chamber, the rulers watched in horror. Their grand plan, their mighty armada, was being humiliated. Before their eyes, counselors who once sneered at humanity now sat frozen, Chancellor Vera spoke in a low, grim voice. They are not fighting us for victory. They are fighting us for memory. Every strike, every calm word. They want us to remember that humans never kneel. Admiral Valith slammed her claw on the table, fury shaking her voice. This is impossible. One ship cannot defy the Empire. But deep inside, even she felt the truth. It was not the ship that frightened her, it was the humans. On the Odyssey, the crew moved with precision. Fear had transformed into something new, confidence. Every hit against the enemy fueled their resolve. Every alien retreat proved the impossible. The Empire was not invincible. A desperate transmission came through the alien channels. This is madness. They should have been ashes. Why do they not fall? Captain Ward listened, his expression cold and unshaken. Transmit this reply, he said. We are humans. We do not bow. We do not break. And today, you learn fear. The message spread through the entire Armada like fire. Alien crews froze, their morale collapsing. Some ships powered down weapons, others retreated into the void. And still the Odyssey stood, one ship against hundreds. Not victorious by destruction, but victorious by will. In distant corners of the galaxy, rebellion sparked. Enslaved races whispered, the humans fight, and they survive. Merchants murmured, if the Empire bleeds, perhaps they are not gods. And even in the hearts of imperial citizens, doubt spread. The humans had lit a fire no fleet could extinguish. The Council could not contain the truth. Whispers had already escaped beyond their reach, the galaxy knew. The Empire had faced humans, and the Empire had trembled. On the bridge of the Odyssey, silence followed the retreating enemy. The crew stared out into the dark, exhausted but unbroken. One by one, they turned to their captain, their voices soft but full of pride. We did it, sir. We made them fear us. Elias Ward nodded slowly, his eyes heavy but steady. This is only the beginning, he said. They will come again with more ships, more anger, but no matter what they bring, they will remember this day, the day the Empire learned fear. And so it was. From the core worlds to the edge of the stars, from the council chamber to the smallest mining colony. The word human carried a new meaning. Not weak, not prey, not primitive, but unflinching, unbroken, unafraid. The Empire had built its rule on fear, but now it was the Empire that trembled and the galaxy would never forget.